Thank you, Seraph. I'm going to have to work on my pronunciation a lot because I suck at Korean. Now that we are slightly more culturally educated, let's take a look at the teams in Group B, or what was formerly known as Group B, because we're turning to your nicknames from Twitter once again.
And of course, thank you guys for sending so many. The majority of you have noticed the same thing that TSM did, which was finally the absence of a Korean team in this group. And that prompted a few of you to suggest that this was a very lucky group, despite the fact that he's not on Royal Club anymore. Although one of my personal favorites was Group B should be Lord's Group, because they'll never beat Royal.
No. Dipping back into Monty's Twitter feed, I see you gave a shout out to Twitch chat once more by calling this group Failfish. Any particular reason?
Yeah, that's the old facepalm. You know, this group is probably not the most competitive group in terms of as we run deeper. A lot of parity in this group early on. It's difficult to tell who's going to get out. In fact, pretty much any one of these four teams can theoretically get out of this group. But any team is going to lose in the quarters here. So we're going to see a lot of face-palming. We're going to see a lot of face-palming from the analysts in this group.
Strong words indeed. For me, the most appropriate nickname for this group actually came from our very own Jat during the reveal show, which is the Veterans, because all four of these teams have actually been to Worlds before.
And plenty of you actually did suggest that name yourself, although the first of you to agree with Jat was at BrettVZ, and I'm sure Jat would love to thank you for that himself.
I will thank you too. Now that we've had some fun, it is time to actually check out these veteran teams in Group B, starting with the #1 North American LCS seed, it's Team Solo Mid. And the #1 team from the GPL region is the Taipei Assassins.
We're also adding the #2 team from China's LPL, Starhorn Royal Club, and the #3 team from the European LCS, SK Gaming.
All right, let's actually zoom in for a closer look at Group B, and we're going to be starting things off with SK Gaming. SK overhauled their roster coming into the 2014 season after placing second in spring and third in summer. SK has gone from not making Worlds last year to being a potential dark horse in their group, depending on how well they perform. Unfortunately, that potential took a serious hit on Wednesday when Svenskeren was suspended. The suspension on Svenskeren will be for SK's first 3 World Championship games, and he has also been fined $2,500 for being racially insensitive on the Taiwanese server. This is not the first time that Svenskeren has been warned about abusive interactions with players and fans, and his last formal warning was back in July. SK Gaming's substitute for the first 3 games is going to be Gilius, and the last time we saw him was when he was playing for the Unicorns of Love, the challenger team that recently defeated Millennium in the spring promotion tournament, and it's somebody that you've commented on and spectated for many months this year.
Yeah, so Gilius is a pretty good player, certainly. The difficulty, though, is that his style is very different from Svenskeren's. Of course, playing with a new player in general is always going to be very difficult, especially someone who's quite good like Svenskeren. The different style is likely to be a hindrance, but sometimes new players just click, and there's that weird chance that works out well for SK suddenly. This means SK Gaming's lineup is going to look like this for the first 3 games. In the jungle is going to be Gilius, in the mid lane is Jesses, supporting is N-rated, AD carry Candy Panda, and top laner Freddy122.
All right, Monty, coming into today's show, you actually had SK Gaming as one of your favorites to make it out into the quarterfinals. How much has Svenskeren's actions affected his team's chances, in your opinion?
Quite a lot. In fact, I mean, they're not coming in with a lot of scrim time or any at all potentially with Gilius. And it's unfortunate because if we look at this team and the European playoffs, I think this was a very strong team. They really gave Alliance a run for their money in a way that nobody else did during those playoffs. And for me, they were really the second best team coming out of Europe, even though they couldn't take the second seed due to being paired with Alliance in the semifinals. So I think they're quite good. I was excited to watch them. Now I think they are probably going to take last in the group.
Yeah, I felt the same. Crepo, can I just get you to comment on SK losing Svenskeren? These are players that you've known for a long period of time. How much does it mess with your gel to lose that man?
I mean, we have had to switch players throughout this season, and it's definitely really hard to just get that vibe, get the same people on the same page immediately, and then in such a big event for Gilius, who started in Challenger scene, made it into LCS, hasn't played it, and immediately has to go to Worlds. That's going to be a tough blow. However, whenever I tuned into the Challenger scene, I always liked what he was doing. He was an active player, had a good sense of understanding of the game, and he had good mechanics. So I hope he performs.
Well, we'll see if it does. Definitely for SK's chances. All right, up next, it is the GPL's Taipei Assassins. The Taipei Assassins won the Season 2 World Championship, surprising everyone with a phenomenal performance. This surprise was actually equaled by TPA's inability to qualify for Worlds last year. Over the last 2 years, TPA has struggled to find a consistently strong roster, but they do seem to have found a recipe for success in their current 6-man squad. They blasted through the winter, spring, and summer splits of the GPL, earning the #1 seed from their region.
And we actually saw this team play at the Paris All-Star Invitational back in May. But when they played there, Wins had just joined the roster as their junglers a couple of weeks ago. So these teams, or this team specifically, has gotten a lot better since then. And it's something we're going to actually watch how well Wins actually synergizes with that roster. Let's check out the starting lineup. In the top lane is Achi. In the mid lane is Morning, or maybe Chawi if they sub him out. Supporting is Jay. AD carry is BB, and jungle is Wins.
Yeah, and just to expand on that mid lane point, both Chawi and Morning have played in their regular season, so it is a strategy this team may employ. I want to ask more about Wins, and I want to ask Monty your opinion because I know you know him quite well.
Yeah, he's a veteran, so he's got a lot of experience on the world stage from last year. Well, not a lot, a little bit. He did only play one best of 3, but he looked good, and he's only developed since then. And he always occupies a space kind of in the middle of the challenger ladder in Korea. He's known for his Lee Sin play. And moreover, he's now getting coached. Another thing that we really need to talk about is that one of the former coaches from the Najin organization in Korea has moved over to the Taipei Assassins. And we've seen them improve dramatically under his tutelage. And man, they look good in the GPL finals. Clean sweep.
Yeah, they definitely are looking good. I keep talking about AD carries, and every time I do, it's double lift I throw them to. BB, AD carry, go.
Well, we did CLG did a boot camp in Korea, and I had the pleasure of practicing against BB and Jay. And I can tell you from first-hand experience that I would be very surprised if he had a good time in lane in this group. Honestly, he's not a very strong player in lane. He's more of a hyper carry. He loves to farm. He loves to do the double lift and split push solo on AD carries until he's strong enough for team fight. But really, his laning phase to me seemed incredibly weak. So that's just something to look out for.
I sincerely hope he's learned from the double lift and not going to make the same mistakes. Right, let's move on. The next team in Group B is China's Star Horn Royal Club. Many of you will remember Royal Club as a team who made it to the final match in Worlds last year before being beaten by SK Telecom T1K. This, however, is almost an entirely different team.
It really is. The new players are going to include 2 Korean former stars, including jungler Insec. And this is a new lineup that has actually looked pretty good. They took second place in the LPL regional final to qualify for that return trip to Worlds. Let's take a look at the total starting lineup here. In the jungle is Insec. The AD carry is UZI, that's what we're calling him here. The support is going to be Zero. The mid lane is Korn, and the top laner is Cola.
Yeah, it's very a strong lineup. Many players remember Uzi from last year. He has stated quite clearly it's UZI. And AD carry, it's double lift. I'm going to ask Chinese AD carry, UZI. What do you think?
So he blew everyone's minds last year at Worlds. I mean, he made these ridiculous plays. His mechanics were spot on, but his biggest weakness in the LPL has been his inconsistency. This guy is not afraid to jump in 1v5, and sometimes it works out, and he escapes with 10% HP in situations where other AD carries would have just died. But he is a big risk taker, and that's a good and a bad thing for his team.
Yeah, I mean, I look at UZI and I see that playmaking possibility, and in a way, his style perfectly works with Insec, their jungler, because these are both guys that are action first, think later, right? And that's why Insec, he fell off in Korea. His mechanics are still great. He's very aggressive, but he overextends. He gets ahead of his team. But when he's with another player who does that as well, it almost works because they can force so many skirmishes around the map that they often catch teams off guard.
And this is a team I actually have my eye on a lot as well because they could just be so darn good. The problem is getting everyone onto the same page. They have to play in English together, which is none of the players' main language, right? Like, if this team could learn to play as a unit of 5, they would be ludicrously incredible.
Yeah, there's one thing that's interesting, though. If you contrast them to OMG, they are both very aggressive, both in your face, when you see which one can learn the most between their regional qualifiers and now the world stage. Now, with that, it brings us to the final team in the group, North America's Team Solo Mid. TSM had a dramatic finish to the summer playoffs, beating their rivals Cloud9 for the first time ever to take the #1 North American seed back. And they are certainly no strangers to the world stage. This marks their 4th appearance at the World Championship, and this time, more than ever, TSM actually has the ability to do well.
Yeah, I think this is the best roster TSM have actually ever put together now. The individual skill level is really high on this group of 5. So they kind of brought in new players at the beginning of the year. They've expanded that support staff as well with Coach Loco Doko. And for the first time in a year and a half, they're, as you said, back to being the #1 team in North America. So this is a roster that could go far here. Let's check out the starting roster, though. On the jungle is Amazing. In the top lane is Dyrus. In the mid lane is Bjergsen. At AD carry is Wild Turtle. And supporting is Lustboy.
Yeah, now both Crepo, you and Doublelift have played against this team all season long. Crepo, I want to ask your opinion in the support role on Lustboy. He seems to have transformed that duo lane with Wild Turtle.
I just think Lustboy is a really solid player. I think his laning is not his strong point, but he's solid enough to go toe-to-toe with a lot of other people. But I just like what he brings in terms of vision control. He's very calm. He rarely gets caught out and just is a very methodical player. When you watch TSM play and when they rotate around the map, Lustboy will often be leading the charge. I don't know if he's calling them, but he definitely knows first where to go, and he just does that immediately. No hesitation, and just a super solid player.
Yeah, it definitely seems to be performing well. Doublelift, anything to add on the rest of the squad? Maybe looking at Bjergsen as really their all-star player at the moment.
Yeah, I think when a point of contention when you're watching a game is something to talk about is when somebody goes even against Bjergsen. That's something that's interesting about the game. That is a big problem because Bjergsen is just a monster. He's unrivaled in North America. This guy almost always solo kills his lane, if not just consistently pressures them. And the thing to note about Bjergsen is he will break the opponent mid laner. There will be times early in the series, or maybe the first game he's up against someone, he goes even. Then as it goes further and further across the tournament, he just essentially destroys them and picks them apart.
I definitely agree that Bjergsen is a very strong individual player. I still have to call into question TSM's shot calling a little bit, just because I know it's not a role Bjergsen really loves, but it's the one he's kind of been forced to embrace a little bit. So his 1v1s are still very strong, but TSM, I think, are going to have a really hard time keeping up strategically with some of the teams in this tournament.
Well, we'll have to see. They learned a lot at the North American playoffs. We are actually going to turn things over to the mind of Monte Cristo once again, as he highlights 4 players in the laning phase.
Thanks again, QuickShot. When you look at the lineup of talent on these 4 teams, it should really come as no surprise that the matches in this group, just like in Group A, will rely on the AD carries. So let's take a quick look at the 4 ADCs in Group B. For SK Gaming, we'll start off with Candy Panda. He is one of the most experienced ADCs in Europe, and he also brings experience with him from his World Championship appearance in Season 1. Team Solo Mid's Wild Turtle is next. He's one of the most unpredictable ADCs in North America. His performance at Worlds last year proved one that he is one of the strongest players for TSM. For Starhorn Royal Club, Zuziai, he's back again. He's one of the best ADCs in China. He's one of the top in the world, and he rivals Name, but more as a playmaking ADC. You'll probably remember him from his performance last year at Worlds, where he nearly carried the team all the way to a title. And finally, the Taipei Assassins have BB, who is the only returning member from the team that won the World Championship in Season 2. He posted huge numbers for TPA this year, winning the GPL and bringing them to Worlds. Let's talk a little bit about ranking. If you rank the ADCs coming into this group, here's how I think they measure up. Coming in at number 4, it's going to be Wild Turtle. At the World Championship last year, he was one of, if not TSM's biggest asset. But his most recent playoff run has been inconsistent. His laning phase has been poor, his team fighting has been hit or miss, and while the rest of his teammates have really risen to the occasion, he's stayed a little bit behind. Coming in at number 3, I've got Candy Panda. Candy Panda is a veteran player who's looking to improve his performance from Worlds in Season 1, where he fell out of groups. He's pretty strong in Europe, but he is a bit behind the other 2 ADCs in this group, who are both former world finalists and 1 world champion. World champion's coming in at number 2. It's BB. This is his return to the world stage for the first time since he won in Season 2. TPA right now is focused on getting him ahead. Like Doublelift says, he may not have the stronger laning phase, but he does play hyper carries, and they do rely on him significantly in the late game. Now, number 1, it's got to be Uzii. Uzii has a long list of accomplishments, including his crazy Vayne mechanics from last year's appearance at Worlds. With any luck, we'll see his aggressive outplays this year, and if we're not seeing those outplays, we're probably going to see him fast pushing on Caitlyn. So that's the laning phase for Group B, and that means we'll be watching the bottom lane a lot in Taipei. QuickShot, back to you.
Thank you very much, Monty. Make sure you catch that Korean hype train on the way back. Now, it is time to hear from a player who's made it all 4 World Championships, as Riv caught up with TSM's Dyrus regarding their chances in Group B.
What's up, League fans? Rivington here with Dyrus atop the Shangri-La Far East Plaza. Absolutely gorgeous here in Taipei, Taiwan. Got the chance here to sit down with Dyrus and talk a little bit about Worlds, and I want to start first with the victory at PAX. What did it mean to you to take down Cloud9 and get the LCS title in your personal accomplishments?
Normally it wouldn't be as high, but every game was so close fought that it was well earned. It was a really hard fought battle through every single match, and it was very close every single game, and we finally made it.
Finally made it, and you for a 4th time now. What's different about this year that compares to the rest? What can you kind of take out of this and bring to this Worlds?
Well, this year a different roster every single time. Except me, I've been here. Personally, it just gets better every year because it isn't really about the prize pool. It isn't really about well, it is about winning or losing, but every single year, more and more fan interaction comes to the scene, and it becomes more and more exciting to, perform for the fans.
Right on. So a lot of people feel that you guys kind of got a favorable group draw. How do you feel about it?
In my opinion, we've gotten maybe the first or second best group we could get possible. Of course, that doesn't mean it's a free ticket to Worlds. In best of ones, out of 2 matches per each team, anyone can win. And if we just slip up that one game, if we go under pressure, even if we are favored to get out of our groups, it's really, really easy to not get out of groups.
You guys kind of got a little recognition and praises sung by Samsung Blue Acorn on social media that says, you guys were the hardest team to face. Are there any teams that you are actually looking forward to facing in Worlds?
Personally, I'm looking forward to playing against every single one, whether they're good or not as good as the other teams. They're really, really fun to play against. I feel very, very confident in what we've been doing, and as long as we play to our best and did our best and we still lose, then that's how far we got. And if we win, then we all know what's going to happen.
So follow up on that, is there any player you would like to specifically face in this Worlds matchup?
Out of all the top laners I really respect so far is Going. And last year by playing against him and Impact, they just showed me a top lane level of mechanics of where, I just wasn't there yet. And this year I want to see how far I've gotten to compare up to them.
And I want to step back real quick, back to PAX before our final question. What was the Dyrus we saw at PAX? It was definitely a different Dyrus, a very emotional and powerful Dyrus. Will we see that here at Worlds?
In my opinion, the emotions kind of get in the way because when I did that at PAX, it ruins my team's concentration and what we need to do next. It's going to be more serious and more strict on myself, but I'm going to be looking to play as strongly as I did as PAX.
All right, and Dyrus, what would it mean to you to win Worlds?
It would mean that the last 3 times I didn't make it, that as long as I put my mind to it and as long as my teammates, kept doing what they were doing and I just stepped up to my teammates' level, then it would mean everything. It would mean I'm giving the win to myself, to my fans, to North America, and just everyone in general.
Thank you very much for that, Riv and Dyrus, and I'm sure picking up those wins will mean a lot to the TSM fans as well, but you need to pick those wins up. Winning gets you out of groups. We've dissected Group B. I want to ask the panel, which 2 teams will be advancing from Group B to take place in the quarterfinals in Busan, Korea? I'm going to start with Crepo, formerly of the European Union. You turned to apple pie. You turned to freedom. Are you a believer in TSM or not?
Last year, I put all my hopes for Royal Lucian. Didn't end up happening, so I'm going TSM all the way this year. I think actually they have a chance of placing first in their group, with a close second being Royal Club. It might be the other way around. I'm sure Monty disagrees with me here. But yeah, something tells me, I have this gut feeling that TSM is going to show up and place first.
Well, it's going to be interesting. Double, if you've played against them even longer than Crepo has. Give me your opinion, your top 2, who's getting out of groups?
Definitely Starhorn Royal Club as the first. They're just the strongest team in the group to me. They come from China, a very aggressive region. Their team fighting is immaculate. They have UZI. This guy is a monster. He's going to crush everyone bottom lane. And then number 2, Taipei Assassins. Even though this group doesn't have a Korean team, to me, they're like the honorary Koreans because they scrim constantly against Korean teams. They play in the fastest region with the lowest game time. That means these guys are super objective focused, and it'll catch everyone off guard. Just don't underestimate TPA. In my opinion, they're going to make it out of the groups.
So no faith at all in TSM. You don't think that they're going to show up and, take them out?
It's close between TPA and TSM, but I have to say, TPA's playstyle to me inherently counters TSM's.
A CLG member suddenly not believing in TSM.
All right, let's talk a little bit more. Monte Cristo, who is your top 2 teams? Does TSM feature? I know you liked SK before the incident.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is that SK doesn't have that same scrim practice that they've had in Korea with their normal junglers, Svenskeren, so any substitute situation is really going to knock them down the standings. I got them at number 4. Number 1, I'm taking Starhorn Royal Club. This is a team that has, with UZI, has a lot of international experience. He stepped up his game last year. And for me, the difference between Starhorn and TSM is that they kind of target the weak point in Wild Turtle's laning phase. I see Uzi kind of getting huge out of the lane here, and as much as TSM has stepped it up with their other members, I think they're just not going to be used to the heavy, aggressive, skirmishing style of Royal. There aren't that many teams that play like they do, and I think they'll have an edge.
Yeah, between the rest of the table, TSM, TPA, Royal Club, is there any differences on your side? Which 2 are getting out?
No, for me, number 1, definitely Starhorn Royal Club. UZI is basically just going to have a farm lane, both of minions and champions down there. It's going to be, honestly, I feel pretty free for him, and he can carry his team to victory almost single-handedly here. The number 2 team for me, though, is Team Solo Mid. I think they're actually quite strong individually across the board, which is good for them. Taipei Assassins, to me, could finish somewhere between 1st and 3rd. Like, maybe they could upset the entire group. The problem is their region is so shallow. It's like they have HQ and then a bunch of like CLGs. Like, most of the teams that they face are not really big tests. And so you say like they have these really fast game times, but like that doesn't necessarily mean anything for TPA here. So I don't know how strong they necessarily are. But maybe they're actually incredible, and maybe they finish number 1. But to me, it's SHRC number 1, TSM number 2, TPA number 3.
All right, well, first off, I'm going to get you back for that at some point. And second of all, I'm going to counter your argument by saying TPA has been scrimming Korean teams for a whole year. North American teams can only dream of going to Korea and kind of boot camping for a couple weeks, but these guys practice against Koreans all year.
Yeah, but we saw how well Korean scrims turned out, right?
Yeah, definitely worked out.
Well,
we need to.
We can't expect anything from the other Korean boot camps, can we, right before Worlds?
Let's move this one along. And even though we have the president of Puntown with us, we're going to turn to you for a bit of wacky wordplay. It's time once more for the 2014 World Championship preview show, Mad Libs. By now you know the drill. This is where we take your submissions on Twitter, drop them into a sentence that none of you guys have seen, and hopefully we end up with something funny.
That's how I do puns. Remember that earlier we revealed the sentence to you guys? This team name better verb this group, or they will verb all the way home. And these were our favorite responses for Group B. At Fictitious Panda tweeted TSM better hop this group, or they'll flop all the way home.
A few of our analysts said they could do that. Our second one also comes from a TSM fan, and it says from @Coco5 says TSM better eat this group, or they'll sleep all the way home. That is how you get fed.
It's true, although the weird thing is if you eat, you tend to get sleepy afterwards, so I don't know, we're going to have to see. But I'm, of course, starting to see a trend here because our next tweet is also about TSM. At DJ Grizzy wrote, TSM better one-erd this group or they'll be capping all the way home.
Definitely not words. Now, just because your answer didn't make air this time, don't worry, we will be playing again next week with a brand new sentence.
It's going to be great. So be sure to follow at LOL Esports on Twitter and keep your eye out for the next round of World Championship Mad Libs.
Yeah, and with the very first stage of Worlds kicking off soon, let's take a look at the schedule. There are 24 games heading your way as Groups A and B compete in Taiwan, beginning with a showdown between Edward Gaming and Samsung White. And we'll end the first day with Starhorn Royal Club taking on Team Solo Mid.
It's going to be some great games, but Friday's matches will also come the day after with TPA versus SK Gaming at the beginning, and they're going to end with Edward Gaming going up against AHQ Esports Club.
Yeah, day 3 will see TPA taking on TSM, and our analyst predicted that one of those two teams will join Royal Club in the quarterfinals. This might be the match that determines it.
Will be great, and of course that same match that began the Taipei group stage will end it as Samsung White faces Edward Gaming once again. And remember, those matches all start at 5 p.m. local time, which is 11 a.m. Central European Summer Time, and